Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be drafting a basic bodice with side darts, and these are the measurement needed and the equipment needed for this drafting. I'm going to be making use of 24 inches for the length of this pattern drafting. So from this point here that I'm marking, I'll make that as my shoulder measurement. So I'll mark down to my hip measurement, which is 24 inches. Now I'm going to be using my ruler to roll a straight line on those points I mark out. Now I'm just going to label this as my shoulder line and then my hip line. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure from my shoulder line to my bust point, which is 11 inches. Then from my shoulder line, I still place my tape measuring 18 inches for my waist point. So now I'm going to use my ruler to roll a straight roll on those line. Now I'm done rolling on the line I have, which is my bust line and my waist line. So now I have 4 lines on my pattern paper, which is my shoulder line, bust line, waist line, and hip line. So now the next I'm going to take my shoulder measurement, which is 16 divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. So from my shoulder line, I will mark out the 8 inches. Now from that point I mark out the 8 inches, I'll be going down by 1 inch, and this will be for my slope, my shoulder slope. So now I will connect this way, meeting my shoulder line. Now I'm going to be making use of 3 inches for the wideness of the neck, then 3 inches for the depth of the neck. I'll use my ruler to connect to both points I have there, just like this. And this will be for the neck. Now I'm going to be taking my armhole measurement, which is 17 inches divided by 2 will give me 8.5 inches. So from my shoulder slope line, I'm going to come down by that 8.5 inches. Now I'm going to be using my ruler to connect from that my shoulder slope line, meeting that 8.5 inches I marked there. I'm going to use my ruler to roll a straight line just like this. So that will be for my chest line. Now I'm going to take my bust measurement divided by 4, which is 10.25 inches. Then I will mark the midpoint of my armhole, which is 8.5 divided by 2 will give me 4.25 inches. So now I will place my tape there. I'll mark out the 4.25 inches to get the midpoint. Now from that point I mark the 4.5 inches. I'm going to come in by ½ inch. So from that ½ inch, I'm going to connect this way, meeting each point with my curve rule. You can actually make use of your free hand. Now I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. I'm going to be placing this from my bust line. I'll mark 4 inches there. I'll come to my waistline, mark 4 inches. To my hip line, I'll mark 4 inches. Now I will use my ruler to connect to each point. I marked the 4 inches on. Now from my waistline, that is where I'm going to be taking the dart intake of ½ inch for the side, ½ inch for the other side. Now I'm going to, from my bust line, I'll be coming down by 1 inch. So I'm just going to take the 1 inch there just as you see me doing. Then from my hip line, I'm going to be coming up by 2 inches. So I'm going to place my tape. I'll come up by 2 inches and I'll take it there. So what I'm going to be doing, I'll connect from this point to this point to this point, just like this with my straight rule. I'll be doing the same thing on the other part, just like this. So now this is for my front dart intake. I'm going to take my measurement, which I already took 10¼ inches. I'll take my waist measurement, which I divided by 4 to give me 9½ inches. So I'm just going to mark this there. Now I will replace my 1 inch dart intake. I'm going to be replacing it. I'll mark it there. Then for my hip line, I'm going to measure my hip measurement, which I divided by 4, and it's going to give me 11 inches. So now I'm going to connect to each point I marked on the line I have here for my body measurement. So from the chest line, I'll connect to my waistline. From my waistline, I'll connect to my hip line, just like this. After doing that, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from my hip line. I'll be marking 1 inch like this, and I will roll a straight line on that 1 inch point I marked below my hip line. And this is just to serve as extension for my side dart intake. So I'm just going to connect it this way, meeting the 1 inch line I have. So now I'm going to place my tape from my bust line to my waistline. Whatever I have there, I'll divide by 2. So I have 7 inches there. I'm going to be dividing by 2, which will give me 3½ inches. So now I'll mark out the 3½ inches there, which is the midpoint. I'm going to connect from that point, meeting my dart line on my bust line, just like this in a slant method. Now the next thing I'm going to do, remember the 1 inch I took, is what I'm going to be giving ½ inch to one side, just like this, then ½ inch to the other side. Now I'm going to, from my bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch from that slant line I took there. Now I'm going to be connecting that ½ inch, meeting that point. I'll be doing the same thing for the other ½ inch I have there. Now this will serve as my side dart intake. So when I hold it, it will not shorten the length of my basic bodice. Now I'm going to connect it this way in a slant method. I will only be needing the side part of this 1 inches. I'll only be needing that part to hold the dart intake. Now from that first line I have for my side dart, I'm going to come out by ½ inch, just like this. Then I will connect, meeting the middle line, just like this. So now from that point I have, from that first line, I'm going to connect to my bust line with my ruler, just like this. And this is just to balance the side dart intake when I stitch it together. So now this is all for the front basic bodice pattern drafting. So just go ahead and add half-inch allowance round. Now I'm going to be cutting the front part out. Now I'm done cutting the front part. I'm going to hold my side dart intake just like this. So this is the reason why I went down by 1 inches from my hip line, because of the side dart intake. So when I take my side dart intake, it won't affect the actual length. Now I'll go ahead and draft my back pattern. Still making use of 24 inches for the length. From this point here, I'll make this my shoulder line. Then I'll mark to 24 inches, which is my hip line. I'm going to roll line on those points. Now this will be my shoulder line and then my hip line. Now from my shoulder line, I'll mark down to my bust point, which is 11 inches. Still from my shoulder line, I'll mark down to my waist point, which is 18 inches. And I'll roll a straight line on those points I have there. So please remember to fold your fabric by 2 and mark out 1.5 inches zipper allowance before drafting the back pattern. So please watch this to the end for better understanding. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take my shoulder measurement, which is 16 divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. From that point, I mark the 8 inches. I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. And then I will use my ruler to connect this way, meeting my shoulder line. Now from that my shoulder slope, I'm going to be coming down by 8.5 inches, which is my armhole measurement divided by 2 will give me 8.5 inches. Now I'll connect from my shoulder slope, meeting the 8.5 inches for my armhole measurement, just like this. And I will rule a straight line this way. Now I'll mark out my body measurement, which I divided by 4. I'll place one part here. And then now I'll measure what I have on my armhole measurement. I'll get the midpoint, which is 4.25 inch. I'm not going to be coming in at the back armhole for the midpoint. I'm just going to connect from that midpoint this way, meeting my bust measurement. I'm going to be taking 3 inches for the wideness of the neck and 1 inches for the depth of the neck. That is the deepness of the neck. Now I will connect to both points just like this. You can actually make use of your free hand. Now this is my chest line, this is my bust line, this is my waist line. I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 from my bust line, waist line and my hip line. Now I'll connect straight, meeting the 4 inches I mark on each line, just like this. Now from my chest line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Then I will connect it to the line I have there. From the hip line, I'm going to come up by 2 inches. So now for the waistline, I'm going to be marking ½ inch on the other side, ½ inch on the other part. And then I will use my ruler to connect this way, meeting each point. Just like this. I will be doing it for the other side, same way. And this will be for my dart intake at the back. Now I'm going to be taking my waist measurement. Already took my bust measurement. I'll be taking my waist measurement, which is 9.5. Then I'm going to replace the 1 inch dart intake. Then I will take my hip measurement that I divided by 4. It gives me 11 inches. I'll connect to each point there, just like this. and this is for my body measurement. If you notice, I didn't take 1 inch below my hip line, and this is because the bag does not have side dart. So you can go ahead and add your ½ inch allowance all around. Now I'm done with the back pattern. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm done cutting the back pattern. So this is also the front pattern. So now I'm just quickly going to place the zipper allowance at the remember back. I told you I will add this. I just want to quickly explain something here for the zipper part. So I add 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance. I'm going to use my tape to tape this down to the waist, to the hip line. Now I'm done taping it down to the hip line. I'm going to use my ruler to indicate the zipper part from the basic bodice itself. Now I'm done rolling a straight line here. So I'm going to extend the line on my waistline, meeting my zipper allowance line just like this. Now from that part, I'm going to be going in by ½ inch. So from this ½ inch I went in by, I'm going to connect this, meeting the upper part of my basic bodice just like this. I'll be doing the same thing from my waistline, meeting my hip line in a slant method also, just like this. And this is just to avoid any bulge, or let me just say folding or fold. You know, when you place your zip, that's folding that normally occurs at that zipper part. So now this is for my zipper allowance. I'm just indicating it. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark this out because I'm going to be cutting this. I'm going to cut this out. And this is all for the zipper part, guys. So this is for the front and the back pattern. Now I'm going to place this, fold my dart intake. I will place this on my back pattern. As you can see, it's the same length after taking in the side dart. And this is all for my basic body pattern drafting. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share and like. Thank you.